Okay, let's dive right in. We're looking at a relationship between two global giants, India and Russia, that's being tested in ways we've never really seen before. It's a fascinating story about loyalty, geopolitics, and a single handshake that sent a massive message to the rest of the world.
And this quote right here, from India's Commerce Minister, Piyush Goyal, really sets the stage for everything. True friends are those who stand by each other in both good and bad times. This isn't just some nice-sounding platitude, it's the very foundation, the cultural lens through which India sees its bond with Russia. It's all about sticking together, especially when the going gets tough.
And boy, have things gotten tough. That whole principle of loyalty was recently put on full display in one single, incredibly powerful moment. A moment that didn't just make headlines, it put this entire friendship under a global microscope.
So let's break down that moment. We're talking about a welcome, a greeting, that was, well, it was anything but business as usual. It was a gesture that was packed with meaning, and every bit of it was intentional.
And this was it. Instead of sending a lower-level official to the airport, which is what normally happens, Prime Minister Modi himself went out onto the tarmac to welcome President Putin. Now, you have to understand, in the superscripted world of international diplomacy, that is a huge deal. It's not a small detail. It's a massive statement, a personal touch designed to show the whole world just how important this relationship is to India.
But here's the thing. This warm, personal greeting didn't happen in a bubble. It was a very deliberate move made while the entire world was watching, and a lot of powerful players were not happy about it. Let's get into the incredible pressure India was under.
And this visual just lays out the geopolitical tug-of-war perfectly. On one side, you have the US and Europe pulling hard using sanctions and tariffs, trying to get India to distance itself from Moscow. On the other side, you have Russia pulling just as hard, needing to prove it isn't the isolated pariah it's been made out to be. And whereas India, caught right in the middle of this intense squeeze.
So, the stakes for this visit were just incredibly high for everybody. For Russia, it was basically a massive PR move to show they still have powerful friends, and they timed it perfectly with a business forum to highlight economic ties. For India, it was a nail-biting diplomatic tightrope walk, trying to keep a key partner happy without totally alienating its other allies.
So you have to ask, why? Why would India take such a bold and, frankly, risky stance? To really get it, you have to look past today's headlines and rewind the clock, because this friendship is decades in the making.
And Prime Minister Modi himself used these exact words, a time-tested friendship. That's not just flowery language. It points to a long shared history of cooperation that has survived all kinds of global crises over the years.
And this brings us right back to that first idea of what a true friend is. This relationship isn't just about political convenience. It's built on a much deeper foundation of loyalty, a long track record of mutual support in everything from defense to technology. It's a bond that runs deep.
But, even the strongest friendships face challenges, and beneath all the warm handshakes and the talk of time-tested bonds, there is a giant economic problem, a real elephant in the room that's getting harder and harder to ignore.
Which leads us to a really critical question. When you peel back the layers and just look at the raw economic data, does this relationship actually look like a partnership of equals?
And well, the numbers speak for themselves. This chart is pretty stunning. Russia sells a whopping $63 billion worth of goods to India. $63 billion. In return, India sells back just $5 billion. That's not a trade gap, that's a trade canyon.
This is what economists call a trade imbalance. And to put it bluntly, it's widely seen as an unhealthy dynamic. When one partner is selling so much more than it's buying, you start to get some serious questions about fairness and whether the relationship is sustainable in the long run.
So this all brings us to the big question. What's next? You've got this deep historical friendship on one side and this deeply unbalanced, kind of troubling economic reality on the other. Where does this partnership possibly go from here?
There are some major tests coming up. First and foremost, can they even begin to close that enormous trade gap? What happens with their long-standing defense relationship now that India is getting closer to the US and Israel? These are the huge questions that are going to define the next chapter for these two nations.
And at the end of the day, it all boils down to this one final crucial question. In a world where alliances are shifting all the time, is the warmth of a time-tested friendship really strong enough to overcome the cold, hard reality of a multi-billion-dollar problem? That is the fundamental challenge that both New Delhi and Moscow are facing right now.